This is the Bama Podcast with Marty Solomon. I'm his co-host, Brent Billings. Today we listen in on the restoration of Peter and consider the conclusion that John writes for his gospel account.
We've made it to the end, Brent, verse by verse through the Gospel of John. It's a good accomplishment.
We, as a greater Bama team, this has been a group effort.
And it's been, that part of it's been super nice, having other teaching team members be able to take passages and reduce the load of my own expectations. It's been, and man, I'll tell you, I mean, I'm kind of biased, but their episodes are the best episodes of the series. I mean, Elle and Josh and Reed, I feel like those episodes have been the ones that they're just so good. And that, you know, I don't feel bad about my own episodes. I got some good things to say, but man, their stuff is good. So good.
And like, as we were planning it out, I did suggest like, hey, if more than one person wants to cover a particular chunk, like that's totally cool. And it didn't seem like anyone was going to bite on that idea. But then Josh, you know, gave us a couple extra episodes on John 6, which was awesome.
Yep.
So, and we reserve the right to come back and cover any portion of John a second time, some other time.
We sure do. We sure do. Okay, here's what I want to do today, Brent. This passage, boy, do people love to email me about this passage. I get a lot of messages about this. So I'm going to try to cover it all. Like, I'm going to try to cover all the things so that we can all save the messages and the emails. I think there will be one point I'm actually going to ask for messages, some Slack discussion, some emails, far be it from me to request such things. But I'm going to try to probably hit all the things that everybody loves to talk about in this passage. So here's what I want to do, Brent. I want to have you read the whole passage. So we've done every verse. It's on the table in front of us. And we're just probably we might dive back into the passage here and there, but I just want to be able to look at it from a 30,000 foot perspective from about 14 different angles. And we'll just try to cover all the things. So how about you read the passage in question?
And actually, I want to recover one extra verse from the previous episode. I want to do verse 14. Ooh. Is where I want to start, because I feel like this detail might be important. I'm not really sure, but I just feels like.
Oh, look at that. Look at you. Okay. All right.
This was now the third time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said, "you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Again Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep. Very truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him, "Follow me." Peter turned and saw that the disciple whom Jesus loved was following them. This was the one who had leaned back against Jesus at the supper and had said, "Lord, who is going to betray you?" When Peter saw him, he asked, "Lord, what about him?" Jesus answered, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me." Because of this, the rumor spread among the believers that this disciple would not die. But Jesus did not say that he would not die. He only said, "If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you?" This is the disciple who testifies to these things and who wrote them down. We know that his testimony is true. Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written.
All right, there you go. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Man, so many things. Let's start where you started. Brent, you started by picking up verse 14. I'm assuming because of the reference to the third time. Am I correct?
Yeah, and I don't know if that's necessarily significant, but, you know, we do have a theme going on here.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I would start with, as these patterns of threes that everybody notices, I think appropriately so. I didn't even think about this one. There are 3 threes that jump out to me that I would think, I don't know if I would say for sure are connected, but you have obviously the 3 denials of Peter, And now you have these 3 reinstatements, like these 3 restoration statements. So you had 3 failures and now 3 forgivenesses. That would appear to me to be relevant and linked. And you even have like that parenthetical verse there towards the end of the passage. It's talking about John. It's like, this is the disciple that leaned back, and asked the question about who was going to betray Jesus. Wink, wink, like you, Peter. So
poor guy.
it feels like these stories, like Peter's had 3 magnificent failures that I'm sure he'd love to. In fact, this whole story, he's even like fishing. He's fishing. Like I have, for a sermon I was just getting ready to do this week, Brent, I just kind of went through and I took all the post-resurrection Jesus stories and I kind of mapped out my own timeline. It's been years. I need to do that. I sat down and I did it this last week. Like what I believe, if I harmonize, if you will, if I harmonize the gospel accounts, the book of Acts, and even a reference in, the letter of Corinthians, these resurrection appearances, what is my take, my own personal take of how these things are fleshing themselves out? And so you have so let me walk through it real quick. You have Mary who goes and sees the empty tomb, Mary Magdalene, end of John chapter 20. And she runs back and finds Peter and John. As I read it, they're not hiding at that point. It doesn't say that they're hiding behind a locked door or they're in the upper room with the doors locked. At that point, it just seems she just goes and finds them. They run to the tomb. They see that the tomb is empty, no body. They go back, and as I read it, that's when they all of a sudden go, the disciples that are there, they go and they lock the door. And obviously for good reason. You didn't take the body. You know that you didn't take the body, but you know that everybody's going to accuse you of taking the body. So now you're scared for your own life and safety. So you go hide yourself in the upper room. Mary then goes back to the tomb. She then has a vision of Jesus, not a vision. She meets the resurrected Christ. And then he tells her to go tell the disciples. So she goes and tells the disciples, I have seen the Lord. Now, when you put that together with Matthew's account, he tells her not just go tell the disciples that they've seen, that she's seen him, but go tell the disciples and Peter. And why does Jesus make that distinction? I think, in my mind, it's because Mary's not even, Peter has denied Jesus. Peter's not we don't catch the gravity. We talked about this in session 3. You can even link the episode, the final week betrayal, whatever episode that is, Brent. You can put that in the show notes.
Yeah, that'll be episode 131.
131. And so we talk about the gravity of what Peter's done. I don't think Mary's going to associate Peter as a disciple. He's resigned. He's gone his own way. He's denied the rabbi, the ultimate betrayal. So Peter's apparently, now the Gospel of John never puts Peter in the upper room where Jesus shows up and says, touch my hands, he's not there. He's not there when Thomas is there a week later. So maybe he was there, but I almost read this chapter and I almost think to myself, he's not hanging with the disciples because some of the disciples are with him in the Galilee and he's fishing. And so I don't know if they go they go to get Peter on their way to the mountain where the Great Commission happens. I can't imagine Peter not being on the mountain for the Great Commission, but I don't know. The text doesn't tell us. But they go and they get Peter on the way to the mountain in Galilee where the Great Commission happens. Then from the Great Commission, they go back down to Jerusalem where the ascension happens. 10 days later, they're at Pentecost. That's our timeline here. So Peter, and you guys can all disagree with me. I'm not sure. I think this is the first time Peter's seen the resurrected Jesus. And I imagine he is still reeling from one of the greatest regrets he's ever had. This 3-part denial of knowing Jesus. And now he gets a 3-part restoration. We also have another 3-part story from a different author in the book of Acts. Can you remember what 3-part story, what other 3 occurrence situation do we have, Brent?
Well, Peter's instance with the sheet.
That's right, the sheet that comes down out of heaven with a bunch of unclean food, rise, kill, and eat, that whole story. So you get these, particularly with Peter, you get these stories of 3-ness, 3 events, 3 events, 3 events. So I think there's something there. Is there even more 3-ness taking place? This is the 3rd time he's appeared to his disciples, which now that you say that, Brent, I think that's, in my mind, I think that's good evidence for my own theory here, because he's appeared to them once in the upper room.
Yeah, I wish I'd thought about this before we started, because now I'm thinking like, but was Peter there every single time?
Yep.
Did Peter get I'm just thinking through all the possible.
And he could have been, but as I put the details together, I don't think he is. I think this is the time. This is the time where he sees the resurrected Christ for the first time. I could be wrong. You could totally see it differently. That's okay. You don't have to email me and tell me that I'm wrong. You can just think that I'm wrong, and you can keep that to yourself. That'd be great. That was me trying to be funny. So you have that.
Sorry. A little late on the laughter.
So you have the threeness. Okay, let's deal with another one of the common emails that I get. Well, the Greek words that are used here aren't, because we're about ready to dive into the whole Greek words debate and discussion here, Brent. That's where we're headed. Spoiler alert. And some people love to email, and they love to say like, okay, but this conversation, he wouldn't have been speaking in Greek, so it's irrelevant. Okay, I totally agree. He would not be speaking in Greek. Absolutely not. The debate is going to be between Aramaic and Hebrew. I'm going to say Hebrew. Most scholars are going to say Aramaic. I believe he's going to be speaking in Hebrew. But actually, I would say what he's speaking is irrelevant, because the inspired word of God, as John writes it, is in Greek, unless it was originally written in Hebrew, and there are some that have argued that. But John writes it in Greek, and so John is trying to, in an inspired, authoritative way, tell us through the Greek language, I assume, what's going on in the conversation. So John is using Greek. So whatever choices John is making, they're inspired choices, and those choices in the Greek language do matter. Not that Jesus is speaking Greek. We're not saying that. Jesus would not have been speaking Greek. But John records the conversation in Greek. And in doing so, is John able to communicate in an inspired way, with authority, what the tone, what the intended meaning, what all those things that were spoken in the Hebrew, is he able to communicate what's really going on in the conversation by using the Greek? I think so.
And even if you step back from the inspired portion of this, we know John's following them. So just in a basic observational way, he's going to know the tone, and he's going to see the emotions. He's going to see the shoulder slump when Jesus asked the third time.
Absolutely.
He's going to have that baseline even without, and obviously we do believe it's inspired and that God is working through John's words here. But even without that, I think just any observer would have been able to see more or less what was going on here.
100%. Brent, couldn't have loved your feedback any more than just now. Loved it. All right, so let's dive into, let's pull apart this whole debate. And it is a debate, and it's a good one. I don't think, I have a strong opinion, but I don't think it's easy to know what the opinion should be here. This is a pretty good debate going on here. So as John writes the story, now, first of all, let's talk about the different words for love. Most of us, if we grew up in the church, we at some point were at a youth group lesson where some youth pastor did the lesson about the different Greek words for love. And can you remember what some of them are, Brent?
The Greek are agape, phileo, and eros.
Eros. So those are three options for love. Eros is like the erotic love. It's where we actually, it's the word where we get erotic. Eros love. It's sexual love. And then sexual erotic love, I should say. And then you have phileo, which, what have you been taught about that, Brent?
That's like a brotherly love.
Yeah, brotherly love. And then you were also taught about agape, and a lot of churches have the name Agape Faith Community or whatever. What does agape mean, as we were told in our youth groups?
That is an unconditional love. And I'm also going to search for Agape Faith Community and see if there's a specific church is going to be like, what?
Well, there's a lot of them out there. I grew up around them more than one. But so yes, the agape is like this godly, divine, unconditional love. And that was always taught to me. And that was taught to me like just straightforward. This is just pure Greek, linguistics. Like this is just true. This is just word study. Like this is just straightforward. Turns out it's not that straightforward. There's a huge academic debate about whether or not there's a distinction, especially in New Testament usage. The two words at play that concern us here are phileo and agape. Is there a difference between phileo and agape? And there's a ton of debate about whether or not that's true. Now, let's assume, I'm going to have you read a note that you have in the NET here in just a moment, Brent, but let's just assume that what we were taught earlier, let's run with that line of thinking first and see what it does to the conversation. So Jesus is here. He's talking to Peter. He says, Peter, do you love me? And what is the word that he uses there in the first question?
Agape.
So Jesus says, Peter, do you agape me? And Peter says what?
He says phileo.
You know that I phileo you. So if there's something going on here, it seems that Jesus says, Peter, do you love me? And I hear Peter through a bunch of guilt and a little self-condemnation, saying, you know that I phileo you. You know that I like you. It's not a good translation, but I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that word. Peter, do you love me? Jesus, you know that I like you. And then Jesus responds with, feed
my lambs, which is arnia.
Okay.
Arnia. I don't know how you said it.
Okay, arnia. Okay, so, and then what's the next question? Peter?
Do you agape me?
Do you agape me? What is Peter's response?
Of course, you know I phileo you.
Okay, so if there's something going on here, it would seem that Jesus is saying, Jesus, do you love me? Or, excuse me, Peter, do you love me? And Peter says, Jesus, you know I like you. Yeah, but Peter, do you love me? You know I like you. Then what's the third question?
Jesus says, do you phileo me?
Peter, do you even like me? And what does Peter say? Or actually, read the verse, because I feel like it makes a whole lot more sense in this context.
Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, do you love me?
What's the word that's used there, by the way?
Yeah, I just better double check that.
I don't think it matters necessarily, but I am curious.
It is phileo there as well.
Oh, my goodness gracious. See, I think, oh man, that feels like that makes my point, but nevertheless, I digress. You can disagree with me. So Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him on the third time, not do you agape me, but do you phileo me? Do you even like me?
Yeah, it's not that he asked him for a third time, do you love me? It is specifically, he asked him on the third time, do you phileo me? Which is what Peter's been saying this whole time.
Right. And now Peter's like, so now Jesus recognizes and names potentially what Peter's been wrestling with. I know I don't agape you. And Jesus is like, yeah, but do you even phileo me? And Peter says he's hurt. And then go ahead and finish that verse.
Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you.
And then you pointed out, and I don't have anything profound to say about this, Brent, but you pointed out that even the lambs and the sheep changes. What's the order of usage there?
Yeah, so, and this we can see in the English. It is lambs, which is arnia, the first time, and then the second and third times are both sheep, which is probata.
Probata, okay. So even that, and I don't have anything like profound. I've worked on this for years. I don't have a ton of, like I could make up some stuff, like just some logical Greek Western leaps on what he's trying to say between lambs and sheep that anybody could make. I don't have any great insight there. So if anybody wants to get, on the Slack channels and offer their thoughts, or, send me the email or the message even that here's your insight on the lambs versus the sheep conversation. I just don't have any big insight there. What I am curious about is the whole phileo agape thing. That conversation to me makes a ton of sense. Now, I know a bunch of people are already crafting their emails and they're already sending them to me and they're saying, Marty, those Greek terms are used interchangeably. And so how about we actually look at the it's going to be longer than our Bible passage today. Give us the NET footnote that you found for this, Brent. Let's just kind of pick this apart bit by bit. And I totally respect this footnote. Totally respect this footnote. I completely disagree with most of what this footnote is going to say, but I completely respect it. So don't let me communicate anything different. But Brent, go ahead.
So the footnote, is there a significant difference in meaning between the two words for love used in the passage? Aside from Origen, who saw a distinction in the meaning of the two words.
By the way, Origen, one of my favorite early church fathers, I realize he was declared a heretic later. Origen often was trying to argue for a more Jewish perspective on how they read the scriptures. I feel like Origen was the early church father that was trying to hold on to their Jewish root as Christianity became more and more and more anti-Semitic. So Origen is one of my favorites, and he happens to agree with me. I'm just pointing it out. Okay, go
ahead. Most of the Greek fathers, like Chrysostom, I don't know how to say any of these names, Cyril of Alexandria, saw no difference in meaning. Neither did Augustine nor the translators of the Italo, which is the Old Latin. I assume that predates the the Vulgate that was common in...
Yes, I think so. You caught me off guard, but I think so.
Yeah, I know. This was also the view of the Reformation Greek scholars, Erasmus and Grotius. I don't know anything about Grotius, but Erasmus, I think, was working in like the 13th century or something.
Yep.
The suggestion that a distinction in meaning should be seen comes primarily from a number of British scholars of the 19th century, Trench, Westcott, Plummer especially. It has been picked up by others, a whole list of names there, but most modern scholars decline to see a real difference in the meaning of the two words in this context, among them another long list of names. There are three significant reasons for seeing no real difference in the meaning in these verses.
All right, let's pick these apart one by one.
Point number one. The author has a habit of introducing slight stylistic variations in repeated material without any significant difference in meaning.
And you're going to give us a bunch of examples here. I'm going to say that's pretty arbitrary of a conclusion and a statement to make. Here's one of my biggest pushbacks against this. So these words are used interchangeably. So John just willy-nilly decides to, like, John knows how to use the word phileo, but he doesn't want it. He just stylistically wants to. That makes no sense to me. Not in his style, not in just Greek usage, it just makes no sense to me that John knows how to use the word phileo and just kind of out of nowhere decides to use agape here and change halfway through because he just wants to change it up. Like, that makes no sense to me. It would make more sense to me. Like, I'm okay if he wants to use phileo in this story and agape in another story and phileo in another story and use them interchangeably. Okay, but in the same story, you're using two separate words because apparently he just doesn't know any better. Like, I just have a super hard time saying there's no distinction when the author clearly chose to use two separate words. If he didn't want there to be a distinction, just use the same word. And I know I'm no scholar. I'm not nearly as smart as all the names that are on that list that you didn't read. But that just seems to me like nonsense. But nevertheless, I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, so the examples that they put forth are an interchange in chapter 3, verses 3 and 5, which in that case, it's like, well, this is the same story. So you'd think if they're using different words, that would be an important distinction. And then also chapter 7, 34, and then chapter 13, 33, and those are completely different stories with completely different contexts. So it's like, okay, it almost seems like their examples are working against them.
And each one of these has like a category with it where it's like how God loves the world. And then...
that's coming later.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So an examination of the uses of these two words in the fourth gospel seems to indicate a general interchangeability between the two. Emphasis added on general.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Both terms are used of God's love for man. You see that in 3:16 and 16:27. You see both terms in the Father's love for the Son, as in Jesus, in 3:35 and 5:20. You see both used for Jesus' love for men in 11:3 and 11:5, which that's, another like same story, a couple verses apart. It seems like maybe there is a distinction there. The love of men for other men in 13:34 and 15:19, and then the love of men for Jesus in 8:42 and 16:27. Obviously, this is all in the footnotes. So if anyone wants to like open up all of these passages and dig into this deeper, check out the footnote. All those references will be there. So hopefully you weren't trying to like write that down.
And I can appreciate all this stuff, but I do feel like I could go to every single one of these instances and give my own reasoning case for why there is a distinction. I feel like it's a little arbitrary to say these are used interchangeably when there are good reasons why it may not be used interchangeably and good reasons why it would change. Again, that's my own personal opinion. You can completely disagree with me. Okay, go ahead. What's the next issue?
And I don't know if John is much of one for rhyming, but I do wonder, like, in these passages where it's like a similar thing, but it's in a completely different place. Like, is he making some kind of wordplay? Is he doing some kind of Septuagint Remez work? Like, there's all sorts of reasons he could, change the word from passage to passage.
There sure is.
When it's within a single passage, that's, I think, where it's like, what is he doing if he's not making a distinction? Okay.
Amen, Brent Billings. Amen.
Point number 2 in the footnote. If, as seems probable, the original conversation took place in Aramaic or Hebrew, there would not have been any difference expressed because both Aramaic and Hebrew have only one basic word for love, which is not what I was taught in youth group. So I don't know about my youth group upbringing.
Which I'm fine with the larger point that's made at the end there. I'm not okay with the reasoning of like, well, this is irrelevant because it's not what he was speaking. Yeah, but it's not what the inspired record is in. The inspired record, the Word of God record, is in Greek. So I just, that whole point is completely asinine to me and should be discarded, nevertheless.
In the Septuagint, both agape and phileo are used to translate the same Hebrew word for love, although agape is more frequent. It is significant that in the Syriac version of the New Testament, only one verb is used to translate everything in this John 21 passage. Syriac is very similar linguistically to Palestinian Aramaic. That is a parenthetical note in the footnote. That is not, I don't know anything about Syriac or Palestinian Aramaic.
And it is a good, I mean, that one is a good, that one is a good one. I mean, I'm going to admit that I feel like my case went backwards a couple steps, but I'm still ahead.
Well, and it is interesting, like, there are a lot of different translations of the Bible, and like knowing their context and what their language is like there's so much to know about these, and like, what are the choices that they're making in the Syriac? What do those mean? How did they understand it? So there's no easy way to pick this apart. You really have to know
right
what you're doing with this stuff. So
yep.
Point number 3, Peter's answers to the question asked with agape are yes, even though he answers with phileo. If he is being asked to love Jesus on a higher or more spiritual level, his answers give no indication of this. And one would be forced to say, in order to maintain a consistent distinction between the two verbs, that Jesus finally concedes defeat and accepts only the lower form of love, which is all that Peter is capable of offering. Thus,
you want to talk about a horrible, horrible take. That is the worst part of that entire footnote. Even worse than the second point. Like that's the only way to frame it. I mean, I just framed it a moment ago in a completely different way. It acknowledged all the differences, but apparently the only way to frame it is how he concedes defeat. And it doesn't fit with our systematic theology. And so that is where our translation goes sideways. When we start translating according to our theology, rather than theologizing according to good translation, we have now crossed a line that I am horribly uncomfortable with. So whenever this footnote's like, well, this can't be true because that would just make it a bad theological idea. A, there are a million ways to frame this so that it doesn't have that problem. But B, that is the worst logic when it comes to translation and understanding word study. But nevertheless, go ahead.
Yeah, the footnote just ends with like, this all proves our point, and so we haven't made any attempt to distinguish between the two words in our translation.
Whew, man. But having voiced all my frustration and my passionate opinion, I will absolutely concede, as I did a moment ago, this debate is a super good one. Obviously, the consensus does not land where I land, and I'm not going to hang my hat on any major doctrines here. It's just how I like to read this. I do personally like to read this story where Jesus is coming to Peter and making him grapple with his own guilt and shame and conviction and failure. And he's saying, Peter, do you love me? And Peter's like, well, I like you. Yeah, but do you love me? Well, no, you know that I like you, Peter, but do you even like me? And his point with every single one of these is, Peter, it's good enough. Even if you fail me, Peter, even if you can't agape me, like I think about Abraham and the blood path. Abraham's afraid to put his toe in the blood. So God walks through him. Yeah, Peter, I know you feel like a failure. I know that you know your love will be imperfect. I know that your love is not going to be agape love. And that's good enough. Even if you fillet me, Peter, I still got work for you to do. Even if you phileo me, even if you like me, there's still, it's good enough. It's good enough, Peter. And maybe we do have some deep theological problem with what Marty just said. I find a poetic, gracious, merciful embrace in that. Jesus says, Peter, do you love me? And he's struggling. And Peter, I can imagine Jesus wanting Peter to say, yes, I do love you. But he sees him struggle. Peter, do you love me? He sees him struggle and says, Peter, do you even like me? Because that's enough. Like, if that's all you got to give me on this beach, that's enough. And that's how I read that. Now, Maybe those words are completely interchangeable, and all Jesus does is straightforward restore Peter. Peter, do you love me? Yes, I love you. Peter, do you love me? Yes, I love you. Peter, do you love me? Maybe that's all that there is to. It's less poetic and compelling to me, but I'll give it to you. And the point still remains the same. Our takeaway is the same. We have the restoration of Peter, the welcoming him back into the mission of God. Anyway, I digress. Do with that as you will. I feel like John has a reason for choosing the words that he chooses. It's just where I'm going to default to. So that was my rant, Brent. I don't know where we're at in the passage, but what should we talk about to go on from here?
Well, so I did forget one point on the lamb and sheep thing. So the first time he says, "Feed my lambs."
Oh,
feed
yes.
is Bosco.
Okay.
The second time he says, the NIV translates it, "take care." The NET uses shepherd, shepherd my sheep.
Okay.
And that's poimon, whatever it is, poimano, something like that.
Okay.
My sheep. And then the third time he says feed, so he's back to Bosco, but he's on sheep. He's still probata there. So each one of those is the first and second questions are the same as far as Jesus' question and Peter's answer. But then what Jesus says to do at the end of that is completely different. And then the third one, when Jesus switches to phileo, he mixes the two and he says, "Feed my sheep."
Yep.
So then the question is, who are the sheep and who are the lambs? And
yep.
One other thing that the NET pointed out in the footnotes is in Jesus' first question, "Do you love me more than these?" Who are these? And what is he talking about? So I've always thought, which is their third possibility and what they land on.
Sure.
And they translate it, "Do you love me more than these do?" As in, do you love me more than the other disciples love me? That's how I've always thought of it. But they point out...
Not in love with that.
You're not in love with that?
Nope.
Well, okay, so that's always what I've thought of it. But here they have two other possibilities. So the first one, they say that the tauton or whatever, these, the word for these, it says it should be understood as a neuter pronoun, which I don't know where they're getting that. In Blue Letter Bible, it says that it's a masculine pronoun. So I don't know what's going on there. But their first possibility is that Jesus is referring to the fishing gear, his boat, the nets.
I think they're getting closer. I think that's a horrible idea, but I think they're getting closer.
Yeah, I mean, they ultimately set that aside, but I thought that was really interesting because, earlier in the chapter we see Peter's like, "You know what, I'm just going to go fishing." And so then that flavors this, like Jesus is saying, "Simon, do you actually want to fish? Like, is that really what you want for your life? I thought I called you out of that. I thought I gave you a higher purpose."
Sure.
Yeah. And then,
man, and you phrased it a whole lot better. You're almost winning me over the way that you're poetically putting it. I like that. Yeah.
And I don't know what's going on with the Greek. If it is actually neuter, that would make more sense for it to work that way. And then in that case, the lambs and the sheep would just be the people that Jesus taught him to fish for rather than the fish.
All right. So here's my hunch that I didn't want to talk about because it's only a hunch and I'm not even sure I like it. But now that you've drug it out of me,
that's what I'm here for.
Here's my unthought through thought. Now, I also would assume that our insights are probably in the text, Brent. Like these references, like you hinted at like a remez earlier. I wonder what remez could be here, what John could be. I'm betting that our insight probably lies there, to be honest. I want to know where this is at in the text between lambs and sheep and these references and these, whatever. But I have always, when I had kind of forgotten about the whole "do you love me more than these?" What's just happened is the miraculous catch of fish, right? And we've talked about that before, this 153 fish, which symbolized what, Brent? Can you remember?
There's the Gentiles.
The Gentiles. And that comes from a Jewish midrash, 153 leaves on Jonah. I believe it was a kiva that referenced the gematria. The gematria is the mathematical calculation of the value of a word. He talked about the The prophecy in Ezekiel, I believe it was Ezekiel 47, where the fishermen stand on the banks of the river from Engedi to Edenglaim, and the gematria of Edenglaim was 153, and so that's the number of fish in the sea. Jerome is an early church father that references this idea. So this idea was like known in the early Christian community, in the early Jewish community. We know that.
Think what you will about gematria. Like, it can get pretty bonkers, but
it can.
Right here in the Gospel of John, we have this really weird number of fish.
Right.
And so that is the explanation for it. Whether, wherever you take that, like, that is the number that we have here in our inspired text. And so what did John understand when he used that number?
Right. And there's objective presence of that 153 in Jewish Midrash at this time. So anyway, so if that is the case, where they've just had like this, at least from a literary perspective, you just had the story of 153 Gentiles, I've always thought of that, hearing that as, do you love me more than these, being this havara of Jewish disciples? Because what I'm calling you, Peter, is to feed sheep and lambs from a greater flock. And so I mean, obviously my reasoning here between lambs and sheep is just straight up Western logic, which is why I hate this. But I wonder if Jesus is like, hey, I know you denied me, but do you love me? Yes, I like you. Okay, well then feed my lambs. Take care of those, feed those baby Christians, those outsiders, those Gentiles, those. Okay. But do you love me? Well, you know I like you. Okay, well then shepherd my sheep. Shepherd, take care of those. Oh, okay. Do you even like me? Yes, I like you. Then that's enough. Feed my sheep. Peter, take care of all of them. The new ones, the young ones, the old ones, the inside ones, the outside ones. Peter, if you like me, if you love me, if you're willing to take your broken failure self and put it to use, I can use you to feed all of them, because I need to reach Jews and I need to reach Gentiles, and that's my hunch.
Oh my gosh, Marty.
On the lamb sheep thing.
Okay, so if the lambs are the Gentiles, he said, feed my lambs, but if the sheep are the Jews, he says, feed them and shepherd them.
Right. Correct.
Man.
That's a stupid, crazy hunch. It's probably not good, but anyway, you drug it out of me. There you go. That's my current hunch.
But he is the head of the whole church, but he stays in Jerusalem, doesn't he?
He'll move away from the church will move to Antioch, and then Peter seems to be somewhat. James is the one that stays in Jerusalem. But yes.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Yeah, but really, it's Paul and John who are working more with the Peter does have that encounter with the sheep, man. Okay.
Yeah, Peter is, and Paul will call Peter the apostle to the Jews, and he's the apostle, and Paul will say, I'm the apostle to the Gentiles. So
right.
There is that relationship that would work, but I digress.
Well, that is the possibility that the NET puts forth as their second option in that footnote. Okay. Do you love me more than you love these disciples? And so that would fall.
There you go.
Fall in line there. So,
well, I got nothing else on this passage. I don't know. And apparently there's a whole lot more to talk about, because books could be written. John says, and there wouldn't be enough.
There wouldn't be enough room for the books, but that's not going to stop you from trying, right?
That's right.
So October 27th, here we are. Your book comes out. Oh man, a little over 3 months from now, theoretically, assuming that date doesn't move.
As long as the date holds. We're recording this a little bit before October, but as long as everything is still on track, it's set for February 7th. So we'll see. The whole process has been super intimidating. Never quite been through anything like this, or seeing things like the cover art and all that stuff come to be a reality, which I am in love with the cover of this book. Like, I thought it was going to be one of the things I was never going to like. I was going to hate it, and I just love what the team at Nav Press. It's just a sexy cover. I like it.
Well, if you haven't seen it already, you can check that out. It is actually available for pre-order. So I don't know if I don't know exactly how I'll link this in the show notes. Maybe I'll just point people to your website, Marty, and
Sure.
from there we'll have all sorts of pre-order links, so you can pre-order it wherever you like to pre-order things, if you even do such things. Maybe this will be your first time pre-ordering a book. I think it will be my first time.
Wow, I've definitely done a few.
All right. Anything else you want to say about that or John? I mean, man, like we're not really. I said that we were considering the conclusion John writes for his account, but actually what we're doing in the next couple of episodes is going back and like looking at the big picture of John. So we're not quite done with John yet. We've got a couple more episodes.
Yeah, I do want to take a larger kind of meta level conversation about John, and just kind of talk about like what are some of the linguistic or the literary devices that are being used, but potentially what do scholars talk about in art. Now that we've seen all of it, I could have done it at the beginning, but I didn't want to like, poison the well or taint the waters of, what we would experience. So I kind of waited till the end. Like I gave some of those pieces, like Book of Hours, the Book of Signs, Book of Glory. Like we talked about some of these things, but I wanted to wait till we got to the end, so that now that we've seen it all and experienced it all, we can go back and consider some things. So that's what we're going to do for the next at least one episode, maybe two. We'll see.
Yes. So as much as this feels a little bit anticlimactic, we're not done yet. So more John to come. It is our like biggest request for things to cover, verse by verse through John, and we're giving you even more than
we
that.
did it. We did it.
Yes. Verse by verse plus, something like that.
That's right.
All right. Well, in the meantime, if you want to get a hold of Marty, you can find him on Twitter at Marty Solomon. Go to martysolomon.com to check out his book. You can find me on Twitter at EIBCB. You can find more details about this podcast at BehemothDiscipleship.com. So thanks for joining us on the Behemoth Podcast this week. We'll talk to you again soon.